At exactly 6:47 a.m. on a cold December morning in Russia's southern Krasnodar region, a Project 636.3 Varshavyanka class submarine sat moored at Novorossiysk port along the Black Sea coast. The submarine, valued at approximately $500 million, rested quietly in what its crew believed was one of the most secure naval facilities on the Black Sea. On its deck, maintenance crews performed routine inspections. Inside the vessel's hull, 4 vertical launch systems sat loaded with Kalibr NK cruise missiles, each capable of striking targets up to 1,500 miles away with 1,000-pound high-explosive warheads. The morning shift had just begun. Coffee was being poured in the harbor master's office. Security patrols walked their standard routes along the pier. Everything appeared normal, but beneath the dark waters of the Black Sea, something was closing in that would change naval warfare forever. The attackers had launched hours earlier from a concealed position along Ukraine's southwestern coastline. They were Sea Baby naval drones, Ukrainian-designed unmanned surface vessels measuring just under 18 feet in length and weighing approximately 1,900 pounds fully loaded. Each drone carried an explosive payload of roughly 450 pounds of military-grade explosives packed into a waterproof compartment in the bow. These weren't massive weapons. They cost a fraction of what a single Kalibr cruise missile costs, somewhere in the range of $250,000 per unit compared to the submarine's $500 million price tag. But what they lacked in size, they made up for in stealth, determination, and the element of complete surprise. The Sea Baby drones navigated through the darkness using a combination of GPS coordinates, pre-programmed waypoints, and real-time control from operators stationed safely behind Ukrainian lines. Their engines, specially designed to minimize acoustic signatures, pushed them forward at speeds reaching 50 miles per hour when needed. But on this approach, they maintained a steady 25 miles per hour, staying low in the water, their thermal signatures barely registering above the ambient temperature of the Black Sea. Russian coastal radar systems, designed primarily to detect aircraft and larger surface vessels, failed to pick up these small, low-profile threats sliding through the pre-dawn darkness. The operation had been planned for weeks by Ukraine's security service, known as the SBU, working in coordination with the 13th Main Directorate of Military Counterintelligence and Ukraine's naval forces. Intelligence officers had studied satellite imagery of Novorossiysk port. They had analyzed patrol patterns, identified gaps in sonar coverage, and calculated optimal strike windows. They knew the submarine carried those 4 Kalibr launchers. They knew those missiles had been used repeatedly to strike Ukrainian cities, hitting civilian infrastructure, power stations, and residential areas hundreds of miles from the front lines. This wasn't just a tactical strike. This was strategic payback, a message sent with surgical precision. At 6:45 a.m., the lead Sea Baby drone crossed into the final approach corridor. The distance readout showed 3,200 feet, then 2,800, then 2,400. The drone's operator, watching through a forward-facing camera mounted just above the waterline, could now see the harbor entrance clearly. Security lights reflected off the calm water. The silhouette of the submarine became visible against the pier, exactly where intelligence had predicted it would be. The operator made minor course corrections, adjusting for a slight crosswind coming from the northeast. The drone's navigation system confirmed the target lock. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. At 6:46 a.m., Russian harbor security remained unaware of the threat. Standard protocol called for underwater acoustic monitoring, but the equipment at Novorossiysk had known limitations. The Black Sea's natural ambient noise, combined with commercial shipping traffic that passed through the area regularly, created a baseline acoustic signature that could mask smaller contacts. The Sea Baby drones, with their specially dampened engines and composite hulls designed to minimize sonar reflection, exploited this vulnerability perfectly. They were ghosts in the water, invisible until it was far too late. The first drone struck at exactly 6:47 a.m. and 23 seconds. The explosive payload detonated against the submarine's pressure hull just below the waterline, near the forward section where the torpedo room and crew quarters were located. The blast tore through the outer hull plating, which on a Project 636.3 submarine measures approximately 2 inches of high-tensile steel designed to withstand deep ocean pressure, not concentrated explosive force from direct contact. The detonation created a rupture, measuring an estimated 6 to 8 feet in diameter. Water began flooding into the forward compartments immediately. Emergency alarms screamed throughout the vessel. Crew members scrambled to seal watertight doors, to activate damage control protocols, to understand what had just happened. But the attack wasn't finished. 17 seconds later, at 6:47 a.m. and 40 seconds, the second Sea Baby drone struck. This one hit further aft, targeting the area near the submarine's diesel generators and battery compartments. Project 6, 36.3 submarines use diesel-electric propulsion systems, meaning they rely on massive battery banks for underwater operation. The second explosion punched through the hull in this critical section, flooding compartments that housed electrical systems worth millions of dollars. Seawater and electricity created immediate short circuits. Fires broke out in multiple sections. The submarine, designed to dive to depths exceeding 900 feet and operate silently beneath the waves, was now taking on water from 2 separate breach points while tied helplessly to a pier. The dual strike strategy was deliberate and devastating. The first explosion drew damage control teams forward. The second explosion, hitting while those teams were already responding to the initial breach, overwhelmed the crew's ability to contain the flooding. It's a tactic as old as warfare itself, refined now with precision timing enabled by coordinated drone operations. Within minutes, the submarine began listing noticeably to the right, tilting approximately 3 to 5 degrees as water accumulated in the breached compartments faster than pumps could expel it. Emergency response teams from the naval base rushed to the pier. Firefighting equipment was deployed, pumping operations began immediately, but the damage was already catastrophic. A Project 6, 36.3 submarine, sometimes called the Black Hole by NATO forces because of its exceptional quietness when running on batteries, now sat crippled at its home port. The 4 Kalibr cruise missile launchers that had made this vessel such a strategic threat were still intact. But without a functioning submarine to carry them, they were effectively neutralized. The weapons were useless without the platform. Russian officials would later downplay the damage, claiming repairs were possible, that the submarine would return to service, but intelligence assessments painted a different picture. The flooding had contaminated sensitive electronic systems throughout the vessel. The structural integrity of the pressure hull had been compromised in 2 locations. The cost to repair this damage, even if technically feasible, would likely exceed $100 million and require months or even years in dry dock. For a Navy already stretched thin by losses in the Black Sea, this represented not just a tactical defeat, but a strategic degradation of capability. This strike marked the first time in naval warfare history that unmanned underwater drones had successfully attacked and critically damaged a submarine in port. The Sea Baby platform had already proven itself against surface vessels. Ukrainian forces had used similar drones to strike Russian warships, landing craft, and patrol boats throughout the conflict. But hitting a submarine, a vessel specifically designed to operate in the underwater domain, represented an evolution in drone warfare that military analysts worldwide took notice of immediately. The broader pattern was unmistakable. Ukraine's SBU had been systematically targeting high-value Russian military and economic assets far behind front lines. Oil platforms in the Caspian Sea had been struck multiple times. The Filanovsky field, containing reserves of 129 million tons of oil and 30 billion cubic meters of gas, had been hit. The Korshagan platform had been damaged in separate attacks. These weren't random strikes. They were calculated operations designed to cut funding streams that fed Russia's war machine while demonstrating that no target was truly safe, regardless of distance from Ukrainian-controlled territory. The submarine strike fit perfectly into this strategic approach. Every Kalibr missile that submarine could have launched represented a potential attack on Ukrainian infrastructure, Ukrainian civilians, Ukrainian cities. Neutralizing the platform meant neutralizing dozens of potential strikes. The cost-benefit analysis was staggering. A $250,000 drone had eliminated a $500 million submarine carrying missiles worth millions more. Asymmetric warfare at its most effective. As dawn fully broke over Novorossiysk that morning, the damaged submarine remained partially submerged at its pier, a visible symbol of vulnerability that Russian military planners had never anticipated. The Black Sea, once considered a Russian lake where their navy operated with relative impunity, had become a contested battle space where cheap, innovative Ukrainian drones could reach out and touch billion-dollar assets with devastating precision. The rules of naval warfare were being rewritten in real time, one drone strike at a time, and the implications would ripple through military planning offices around the world for years to come.